The history on this particular building is in 1857. It was constructed for schoolhouse purposes. And it was used as a schoolhouse until 1950. At that point in time, the rural district was incorporated as part of the centralization system of North Collins. After a few years of not being used, it was sold to a family in Buffalo who used it as a weekend retreat. So they did that for a number of years, and then it was pretty much abandoned, although it was still owned by that estate. That estate then gave the schoolhouse to the organization that Richard Tiskowski, a town board member, had set up. Rich did some great things in terms of establishing an administrative base. For example, he obtained a $20,000 historic preservation grant, and he formed a 501c3 corporation. Rich asked my brother Henry and I if we would administer the program from that point on. Anybody with any good sense would not have taken on the challenge, but quite frankly, it was the only one-room schoolhouse in the area that was available that hadn't been converted to home use or a shop. So that was in 2003. Believe it or not, there are over 636 names on the list of supporters that either supported us financially, giving up their time, or donating of the artifacts, because we didn't pay for one artifact that's in this building. The building originally, as built in 1857, was 5 miles away from here. The first step was to restore the building such that we could move it to the library campus in North Collins. The restoration work that took place at the original site was replacing the beams that had rotted, reinforcing the rafters, securing it from side to side with rebar so it wouldn't kick out traveling down the road. This is a post and beam construction, and the water damage was so extensive that some of the beams had completely rotted out. Other beams had partially rotted, and we were able to sandwich them. The interesting thing that we found when we started restoration was 4 layers of flooring. Obviously, the moisture from underneath deteriorated the first level flooring. They added another layer. It took us 9 months to stabilize this building, to get it such that we could transport it without it falling apart. We had to hire a mover to come in and transport it. And what they do is they push I-beams under, and then they put wheels, secure wheels to the back side of the I-beams. They put a tow bar on the front side of the I-beams, and then with a hoist bring it up, and they have created a trailer. Once it was here, then we spent another 1.5 years finalizing the restoration. Believe it or not, there's 25 yards of concrete in the ground that's a trench-type foundation here. So it never again will move. We finished the windows, the siding, the cupola, entranceway, and that sort of thing, bringing it back to the condition it was in 1857. There was no running water, no indoor plumbing, and so there was an outhouse associated with the schoolhouses, which was rough in the winter. You didn't delay and procrastinate, and so you used the outhouse and got back in the school as quickly as you could during the winter. There was no centralized heat, no electricity. There were 7 windows bringing light in. So you can see that light was at a premium, and they used natural light in order to cover the fact they did not have electricity in one-room schoolhouses. Then when you talk about supplemental light, it was oil lamps. In the case of the desks, they had small desks for the younger children and obviously bigger desks for the older children. They would keep the younger students up front. It was a prestigious thing. As you got to a higher and higher grade level, you were near the back of the room. So that's how that was physically laid out. Obviously, inkwells were on every desk. Some desks had 2 inkwells, and the reason being that they had to accommodate both left-hand and right-hand students, because when you have an open pen, it's pretty difficult to transport it too far without the ink blopping on your desk. We have a teacher that comes down and uses this facility to its fullest. She teaches all day long as if it were 100 years earlier. When the students walk into this building, they recognize the dramatic difference, starting with no electricity, no running water, no heat other than the wood stove. So when that sinks in, the students recognize, and it's a tremendous history lesson for them to walk through that door. And I've heard one student say that he appreciates the quietness and can concentrate more on the lesson in that environment.
It's actually really good for you to learn how they lived, learned, and just played, and all the games and stuff.
No one's talking to each other, so it's kind of easier to concentrate.